So today is September 26th, and I just got a haircut and I kind of look like Sailor Uranus now. Jong-un enlisted to the military, and 9 followed Jisung on Instagram, but then unfollowed him 4 hours later. So everyone's kind of popping off in Lionville, but I'm not here to talk about any of that. I'm here to talk about, 2 months late, everything that happened on OnlyOneOf's tour and the backstory that occurred, and also my experience at the shows that I went to. So here goes that. So before anything involving myself can happen, we first have to talk about the snapshots. Now, this year, Studio Pav have priced the snapshots at an exclusively premium rate, higher than they had for any other group this year and higher than they had for any other group last year, including OnlyOneOf's last year prices. They were also responding to criticism and requests by fans incredibly unprofessionally. As a response to this ridiculous action, many North American fans began to boycott, and many fans followed worldwide following this initial Twitter post. For me though, this was my first exposure to how bad Studio Pav were as a company, and my first exposure to Kelly, an absolute villain of a person at Pav who was known to confiscate pride flags, yell at members and fans aggressively for no apparent reason, and express racist actions, all hidden behind the fan engagements, where cameras and recording devices are prohibited. So my personal journey with this begins on my birthday, where I woke up and I saw the announcement that their world tour would be continuing into Southeast Asia and Oceania, which meant I could see them in my home country of Australia, and that was possibly the best birthday gift I could have ever asked for. Earlier in the year, Pav had made a giveaway where fans could win 2 tickets to one of their shows. However, upon these winners being chosen, Pav was attempting to undermine them and only provide them with 1 ticket. Immediately after that tweet went up, Pav were quick to respond and honour their original claim, something that they should have done from the get-go. So many of us were ecstatic at this news. This meant that the boys wouldn't be rushed through cities and would be given a break, and Rhea would have time to let us back heal. It also was confirmation for us international fans that Europe, Southeast Asia and Oceania wouldn't be cancelled or moved at a later date due to Pav's poor planning and how hectic the original schedule was. So imagine everyone's reaction to finding out that they would be opening their Europe leg in London at a gay bar, and not only that, a very well established and notable one. We were so happy. This also tied into us finding out that they would be selling early access for all of Europe, despite never have holding a show or tour in Europe before, essentially eliminating the point of early access, as you have to have attended a Pav show prior to receive early access. This was incredibly unfair and utter bullshit to European fans, essentially limiting their fair shot at good tickets and good seats, especially since there were so many fans coming from Korea and Japan to all of their international tours. The way Pav has acted throughout this tour via price gouging snapshots and tickets, and now this, plus prior mentioned issues from the last tour, truly shows how they think of OnlyOneOf as their guinea pigs, debuting worldwide branches not because they want to help them reach their global audience, but because they see Lion as desperate and believe that they have more leeway to mess things up and be unclear with OnlyOneOf. For me, however, this is when I had a personal panic. At this point, they had performed in a lot of clubs and gay bars, which is quite common for a group of their notoriety, but if they were to do that here, that would mean that I would lose my shot almost entirely, as the rules and regulations around minors entering clubs and bars in Australia is incredibly strict. 3 months after the initial boycott began, and we found some success. We had discovered that they had added a benefit to the premium snapshot and had also acquired a better camera as a direct response. However, later in the tour, people had found out that these premiums had a higher chance of developing slower, worse, or turning green, as well as the benefits being removed from future stops. This was rubbish, but we also found out that they had lowered the prices for the entirety of the tour going forward, and the standard option was added and kept. So in the end, it was a success. So, they added a new and cheaper ticket tier for USA stops. Pretty good. But they had added the tier after quite a few USA stops had already happened. And after most everyone had already bought tickets. What the fuck? Obviously, this was good, as their pricing had been ridiculously high this year. But the fact that they had only chosen to do this now showed just how desperate they were to push bodies into a venue and gain a profit. which, in all of our eyes, was quite pathetic. The next day, as Vancouver began, we saw some bad signs. The venue housing them had completely shut off the balcony, and the lower seating was only halfway to maybe 3/4 full. We were all so pissed, because we knew that had PAV added the $19 ticket tier from the get-go, this venue and so many others in North America would have been much more full. We also had a very notable member of the Discord attend that concert, where they mentioned the absolute dirty stares Kelly was allegedly giving both the boys and the audience during the audience group photo. Said friend had also mentioned how PAV had completely misspelled the word Q, as in Queue, on the VVIP Plus lanyards and some others. This issue also managed to seep its way into Chicago, which, while not the worst thing they could have done, was just plain embarrassing and hilarious. There was also the observation that the boys were allegedly holding less pride flags, holding them for less time, and that fans as a whole were bringing them less. This speculation was thought to be because of Kelly's past actions last year, where she was confiscating them, but we can't fully claim that as it's only alleged, but the thought and observation didn't go unnoticed. So nothing major happened in Chicago, but as mentioned before, the Queue misspell had seeped its way onto Chicago's lanyards, and a fan in the Discord had also revealed that they had left filler text on one of the ments. Just plain embarrassing. Once again, through Discord, we all heard terrible news. PAV had said this was a free seating venue for specific tiers, but had quietly sold off specific seats to VVIP and VVIP Plus people, letting them take said seats after others had already fairly sat down there. They were also seen moving other VVIP and VVIP Plus people around. On top of that, they had also oversold VIP, meaning they were silently downgrading people to tier 4. We ended up having 2 Discord members go, and one of them ended up being unfairly forced to move from their seat, while their companion had their assigned seat taken by a cameraman. So they also ended up having to be moved, despite being in the lowest tier where they specifically had assigned seating. And the second Discord member almost had their seat taken as they were trying to get up to let other people go through in their lane. The second member also recounted how during the group photo, there was a lion who was uncomfortable with kneeling and had expressed that to the staff. The staff had then allegedly completely disregarded them, and they were then later seen leaving the stage in tears. However, this is the only example of this that I can find, and a lot of people were congratulating PAV on how accommodating they were for people who either couldn't kneel or people who were uncomfortable with kneeling due to whatever reason. Despite that though, the rest of New York was absolutely unacceptable and should not have happened. PAV are so lucky that so many of the affected fans are so chill. Finally, we got the information we were begging for. But something was up. For whatever reason, they had removed Malaysia's show entirely, and none of us really knew why. The main speculation was that Malaysia is a mildly to very homophobic country and they didn't want to perform there for those reasons, but that wouldn't cover all of it. The Atlanta show was that day too, and we had a Discord member attend, to which they reported back that many staff members were incredibly rude, and if you were to ask one about where you were meant to be or what was going on, you would get 2 completely different answers. Some staff members had also scared some fans into believing that if they moved from the current spot or line they were in, they would completely miss out on everything. And while not the worst thing that PAV has done, it was still unacceptable. Your staff should know what is going on and should be able to communicate that to people who are lost or confused. So this is unscripted, but at the Atlanta show, Lion did something wrong and I feel that needs to be addressed. What they did was quite a few fans were throwing props and flags up on stage despite the staff requesting them not to, the boys requesting them not to, and the boys looking visibly uncomfortable at the situation. There was also an incident during fan chat where someone had asked an inappropriate question, but I will not be going into more detail. Because of these fans' actions, staff in Orlando were incredibly strict on props and were constantly checking sticky notes. So please, if you go to an OnlyOneOf concert or any other artist, ask appropriate questions and respect the boundaries of the idols and respect what the staff tell you to do. They are there to keep you and the idol safe, and as fans, we need to respect that or we are going to lose the privileges we have. As the last concert of the North America leg, everyone was having a blast with the send-off and the special songs. However, inevitably, something went wrong. For one, no flags or props made their way onto the stage, which is weird because this is LA and their last show for the entirety of the America tour. You'd think this would be the place where they have the most flags and props of any of them, but apparently not. And out of all the people I spoke to involving this, no one saw any in the crowd, and the only tweet I could find of any pride flag was someone who had found a misplaced signed one and was looking for their owner. So we really don't know what was going on, and while it isn't an issue, it was still just a weird observation we had all made. The second issue is that this concert was being recorded, and multiple people missed parts of the show as their view was being blocked by the camera. Now, while this isn't a major problem, it is still ridiculous, as recording a concert should not affect the concertgoer's ability to watch, and should have been mentioned prior to their tickets being sold. One of our Discord members, who had been to some other shows, recounted that the same problem that happened with the seating in New York had happened here. They had also recounted that no one was alerted of the concert being recorded until 15 or 20 minutes before the show started over an intercom message. This should not have happened, as LA has a two-party consent law for recording. This is where the panic truly set in. As mentioned before, I had the hunch that if they were to come to Australia and perform in a nightclub, I wouldn't be able to go because of how strict the regulations were. As soon as we found out what venue it was, we were all frantically Googling. And unfortunately, 170 Russell is a bit tricky, as they are strictly 18 plus unless the act playing asks it to be all ages. Meaning, we had no idea what would be going on unless Pav made a statement. From there, everyone was frantically emailing, messaging, trying to communicate with Pav in some way to find out if their show was all ages and what would be happening, as well as what the f*** was going on with Hong Kong and Ho Chi Minh and why Macau was now suddenly cancelled. This was absolutely ridiculous, as so many people had booked flights and accommodation after their previous post. In fact, we had a Discord member who had this exact thing happen to them, and they were completely screwed. Understandably, sometimes the staff and the organisers can't control if a show needs to be moved or cancelled or not. However, the thing that is making us all angry is the way Pav handled it. Instead of making an announcement and expressly saying, hey, your shows have been moved or cancelled due to these, this is how you get a refund, they slipped this information in between other big vats of information that people were waiting for, as if to silently shove it under the rug and say, hey, this isn't our problem anymore, it's your problem. Which is so ridiculous and unprofessional, it was so incomprehensible to all of us. Later that day, we got a response from Pav via a Facebook group that their shows were in fact all ages. But we should still check with the venue regulations first. Effectively ignoring our question in the first place. And their phrasing was so passive sounding too, none of us actually had any faith. And it also sounded like they had no interest in making it all ages, which was a particular problem as 170 needs active requests to make it all ages. At this point, I was seriously considering going to Singapore if Melbourne turned out to be 18 plus or Pav couldn't confirm anything in time. Unfortunately, Mum had already booked our flight tickets to Melbourne sometime after the initial post, so that meant, at worst, we would get a holiday to Melbourne and a P1 Harmony concert while losing a lot more money than we initially thought we would, or everything would go great and we get 2 whole concerts and a holiday to Melbourne while saving a bunch of money. But no matter what happened, money was already spent and we couldn't go back. A day later, we got another update from the same Facebook group, confirming both Australian shows to be all ages. At this point, everyone was 90% sure that it definitely should be all ages, and Pav were just taking their sweet time and being really difficult with confirming it. But me and a lot of others were quite skeptical, as there was no cited source, and Pav didn't directly comment on it like they did last time. Early in the day, Pav had made the announcement that the date of the ticket sales for Taipei, Hong Kong and Ho Chi Minh would be moved to an unknown date later in the future, the day before the tickets were originally set to go on sale. A little bit weird, but for Hong Kong and Ho Chi Minh it made sense as their dates had been moved around, but Taipei? No one knew why. A bit later, on the same Facebook page, a post was made stating that all the Australia stops would be 18 plus. However, A lot of us still chose to cling on to hope, as this page wasn't providing anyone with a source like the previous time, and the constant contradictions Pav was making was disorienting. I was one of those people who decided to hold on to the hope, as logically it made no sense for someone to limit their audience in a country where their audience was already smaller. Keep in mind too that we had less than 24 hours until the tickets went on sale, and we still had no official confirmation despite weeks and weeks of emailing, messaging, commenting, everything. Nothing. It was beyond the joke. That day too, we were all trying to continue emailing Pav that the choice to have it be all ages was completely theirs and to just get some type of confirmation. But unfortunately, 170's FAQ page, which we were using as the evidence that it's up to them to have it be all ages, had mysteriously gone defunct. Luckily, a lot of people in the fanbase still had the initial screenshot of the information, but the oddity and mystery around the page's death didn't go unnoticed and sparked a bit of worry. Ticket day rolls around and we still have no answer. Everyone was rightfully livid and confused, and most decided to just not buy tickets as there was no official confirmation, and Moshtix was listing it as an 18+ event when you went to check out for general admission. Repeating that clearer, you didn't know if it was 18+ or not unless you went to the fucking checkout to buy a ticket or you heard it through the grapevine from someone else who did. Absolutely unacceptable. However, my dumbass decided that I would still buy a ticket despite the blaring warning sign saying that I shouldn't. Because, Pav, honestly, I wasn't going to miss out on something I've waited years for because of the stupidity and ignorance of a pathetic company. At the time though, I actually had no idea what the plan would be if I decided to buy a ticket and I showed up to the venue and I couldn't go. I think I thought that they were only listing it as 18+ because the venue itself is automatically 18+, and so they just forgot to update it as all ages, or Pav were in the final stages and they didn't update it in time, which logically I knew that that wasn't the case at all, but I'm stupid and I was delusional, so can you blame me? I snagged my ticket, had a friend snag our VVIP Plus tickets as they had early access, and from there we waited. Waited to see if Pav was taking their sweet time to fuck us all over, or if they were only now in the final stages of making it 18+ because of how ill-prepared this entire tour was. It was also at this point where I made the observation that if they were to make it 18+, they would see how low the ticket sales were and make it all ages out of desperation in the future. And that was one of the few pieces of logic I had that was justifying my insane purchase. By the way, OnlyOneOf weren't listed anywhere on any ticket or venue site until right on the dot of the tickets going on sale. And later in the day, we found Pav's FAQ page for Southeast Asia and Australia, and you wanna guess what wasn't there? The most frequently asked question of what age is your show? The most frequently asked question wasn't on the frequently asked questions page. Finally, we had an official response, a full day after the tickets had gone on sale. Melbourne and Sydney shows are 18+. I was fucking livid. Not only did they respond after the tickets had gone on sale, and after so many of the good tickets had been taken, but they responded after the 24-hour cancellation period. So many people who had hope were f***ed over just like me. Couple that too with the fact that they didn't even answer our question properly and instead referenced the venue instead of the act, you can imagine how pissed so many of us were. By the sound of their response too, it sounded like they didn't even care to inquire about making it 18+, nor did they have the interest to change it to be so at a later date, and I was fucking crushed. Later that night, I was looking in to see if I could make it to Singapore, and I could. Their venue was all ages, I still had just enough money saved to get me the same concert tickets and pay for the flight, but I would struggle on accommodation. But I didn't care. I didn't care if I had to force myself awake for 2 hours. I was not missing this. My determination was stronger than anything I ever thought it could be. And later that night, I went and I booked the concert tickets and possibly made the craziest decision of my life. Today, we had some amazing news. The snapshots were announced, and along with that, their prices were announced. And their prices stayed low. They stayed cheap. In fact, so cheap that they were cheaper than some of the snapshot tickets on their Grand America tour. The boycott was a huge success. According to members of the Discord who attended, their line system was incredibly confusing. No one knew what was the T1 line versus the VVIP Plus line versus the merch line, and there was also mention of ticket tiers not being honoured, via some T1 holders who had no benefit entering before people who did have benefits, regardless of if the benefit was VIP or VVIP Plus. Allegedly, they also weren't checking queue numbers, which they were meant to do to ensure safety. Another member mentioned how rude the staff were, with one allegedly going as far as to literally throw a chair at someone with mobility issues when they politely asked for one. We later found out that this staff member was likely Kelly. We also found out that there were issues with the merch, where people had bought them online where it never specified that you had to attend a concert to receive, and multiple people were screwed over trying to figure out how they would get their merch because PAV was refusing to ship it anywhere. By now it had been close to a month since tickets went on sale, and there was no announcement from PAV saying that they were going to be making it all ages. So I decided I'd start sorting out selling my Melbourne tickets. The Moshtix general admission one would be easy, as their site has a dedicated resale option, but the VVIP Plus tickets would be a bit tricky. Those are bought on PAV's site, which is a dumpster fire of a ticket retailer and has no resale option, so we had to opt for Twitter. I asked my friend who bought those tickets how and where they wanted me to post them, and we sorted it out smoothly within a few hours. Since I had a very high queue number, I had faith that it would sell, and it would sell quite fast. And it did! Within 3 days, on the 11th, we found a Korean buyer, and my friend was communicating with them despite the language difference and time difference, and I truly cannot thank them enough. However, it did take a few days though, as they were trying to find a common money transfer site between them, but little did I know, that money transfer site hiccup would be a lifesaver. At the time they had announced this, I had just gotten home from school and was taking a nap when all of a sudden Mum just bursts in the room, yelling, hands shaking, saying that they've just made it all ages and I need to rush to contact my friend immediately. I was stressed. But I rushed straight into my DMs where I find by some goddamn miracle that my friend hadn't sold the ticket yet and was holding it, and they were telling me, do you still want it? I can tell them that you're keeping it. What do you want? And I was like, yes, I'd still want it. I'm still gonna go. I'm so sorry for the confusion, but do not sell that ticket no matter what. Despite my anxiety, they explained the situation to the buyer and we were somehow able to keep that ticket. Now, unfortunately, my general admission ticket had already been sold, but there were still so many tier 1 tickets available, I was fine. The worst of it was that I lost $20 through service tax, but I did not care, because I was going to see OnlyOneOf in my home country at f***ing Barricade. Obviously, this was now pretty messy, as I'd unnecessarily be going to both Melbourne and Singapore and would be spending a lot more money than I initially would have liked. But I didn't care. Money comes back, experiences don't, and I'm incredibly grateful to my parents, especially my mum, just my family in general, friends, the Discord, because without them, I would not have been able to go here. Without the privilege that I have of the job that my parents hold and the place that I live, I would not be able to be going here and be making such a drastic decision to go to Singapore or even continue to go to Singapore after the fact that Melbourne was announced. I acknowledge that I am privileged and lucky, and I am very grateful for it and the people who are around me who have uplifted me and allowed me to do this. So thank you to my friends and my family and the Discord members. I couldn't have done this without you. But now back to complaining, because what the f*** were PAV thinking? Did they seriously think that they could open up a new branch in a new country where both them and OnlyOneOf have never been before, not open their show up to the widest possible audience, and not receive complaints, let alone turn a profit in the first place? Did they seriously think that that would happen? So throughout PAV being organising and drip feeding Asia venues, literally releasing the information the day before tickets went on sale, and continuing to just f*** around with Ho Chi Minh and Hong Kong, we finally got information on the latter. Hong Kong, the first stop on the tour. 2 weeks before the tour started, the day the tickets went on sale, at midnight with 10 hours notice. Meaning most fans were f***ing asleep and didn't get the information until a few hours before the tickets went on sale. So with only a week until Asia starts, we were all hoping and praying that we wouldn't be subject to any more sudden change, but never mind that. 2 more shows had been cancelled, and 3 more venues and dates had been moved around. The next day, the issue had found its way to the members' bubbles, where they were expressing their anger and disappointment. And as fans, we can only imagine how angry and disappointed they actually were. I can't imagine how tiring it must be to have your own tour dates swapped around, because that means you too also have to keep switching out accommodation and flight times. And the strain and pressure put on them to continue to perform despite all these miscommunications would be ridiculous, and it is so unfair to them. Manila was the city to kick off Southeast Asia, and like all the other stops, everyone was having an absolute blast up until they weren't. But this time we have a lovely Twitter thread for it, so I'm just going to speed run through a bit. The big takeaways were that they used expired film for the snapshots, some staff had allegedly been letting international fans retake bad snapshots, but not Filipino fans, so, racism, and that the stage was physically too small for them to dance. That was the worst of them all, because that could have caused a serious accident, especially when you consider how hot it was and how unused to the heat the boys were, and especially when you couple those 2 things with the fact that the boys have had almost no break the entire tour and were likely fatigued out of their minds. Hong Kong went well, save for it being very hot and the boys being evidently affected by it, as well as Hong Kong having some of the worst tech issues they've experienced on the tour thus far. Nine had bubbled about it and expressed his extreme disappointment towards it, and it was upsetting to say the least. The worst thing came the next day though, when a PAV staff member made a now deleted post on their TikTok, practically shaming Hong Kong fans for being quiet and having their phones up the whole time, going as far as to compare them to Manila and how they were better and louder. This was insanely embarrassing and insensitive. How dare they run an international tour and not respect the cultural norms of other countries? And how dare they publicly shame those fans for that? Despite that though, Hong Kong fans were lovely and they had some of the best fan chants we heard all tour. That day also marked the beginning of my journey. Late in the afternoon, after spending an exhausting but fun day out with friends, Mum and I set out to the airport for our flight. The day has finally come. After months of stress and years of saving, I was finally gonna see them. I woke up bright and early, I finished what I could of the cardigan, and I proceeded to get ready. The fit was dopamine mixed with Underground Idol and a touch of Shorty in Blue. Something that screamed homosexuality. Upon arrival, I collected my ticket and I met up with a friend, and we went around collecting some absolutely adorable and beautiful fan-made freebies. They are all so cute. The show sadly was running behind by about 45 minutes, but it wasn't a big deal. Everything was nicely organised and we were all having fun talking to other fans. A little while later, we were lined up and let in for engagements. I made friends with my line buddies and they were so sweet. It was so unbelievably fun fangirling and getting panicked and excited with them. When the boys walked out, we all lost our minds, and once we were asked to stand by the stairs, we were going absolutely batshit crazy. And then it happened. We were led up and told to sit down, and they were right in front of us, and let me tell you, they are f***ing gorgeous. I was immobile. I could not believe that any of this was real at the time, but somehow, despite that, I managed to remember and write down my experience. So here are my fan chat notes, plus a little bit that I'm gonna add. So Yujong was first, and when I went up to him, I was really nervous, but he looked really surprised at me for some reason. And so he asked for my name, he wrote it down, and I told him I'm really nervous and that I was sorry, and he said that I shouldn't be nervous. Next was Mill, and I brought his solo album to sign, and so he was super happy that I had brought his album, and I was explaining how it gives me happiness and energy and how it was one of my favourite solos, and he was really happy about it, and then he gave me a high five. Afterwards, there was Nine, and for Nine, I had practiced to tell them that they're doing really well, we're also proud of you, they shouldn't be hard on themselves and stuff. and he said that I was thankful for the Korean practice I did to explain that to him, but he was finishing my sentences because I was so nervous that I was getting stuck, so I don't know if he is thankful or not, but he said thank you, and then I told him that I was nervous and he held my hand. And then Rhea was an absolute menace. He was next, and I sit down, and the first thing he says to me is, "Oh, whoa, I saw you yesterday." And I'm sitting there like, "You didn't see me yesterday. I don't even think I was in the country yesterday." And he's like, no, at night. And I was like, "What do you mean you saw me at night? I wasn't there at night." And so he's like, "In my head, in my dream, I saw you last night in my dream." And I was like, what? I still have no idea if he was playing this up, if he was genuine, but I'm delusional enough to think it was genuine and that he somehow saw me in his dream. Afterwards, I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so nervous." And he held my hand and is like, "Don't be nervous, baby." And I swear to God, I hope he knows what he does to half of us. And then afterwards, he said that he liked my hair color and the little pin accessory I had in it. KB was next, and I'm like, "Oh, hi, I'm so nervous, I'm so sorry." And he goes, "It's okay, it's only natural to be nervous in front of a hot guy." I hate him so much. And then he somehow recognized that my accent was different, and he's like, oh, where are you from? And I was like, I'm from Australia. And he was like, "Oh, thank you for coming all the way over here." And I was like, "I know, it's fine, I love you guys, of course I'm gonna go see you." And so then afterwards he gave me a handshake. And then Junji, sweet Junji, he was last. As soon as I sat down, he was like, "Oh, your hair's so pretty, it's pretty like the ocean." And I was like, "Oh, Junji, I love you." And then he shook my hand, and I told him I was so happy. I was 너무 행복해. And he was like, "Oh, do you know Korean?" And he was like, "Togum, a little bit." And I was like, huh? It didn't process in my head, and so I was like, 네, Togum. It was so bad. I need to actually practice Korean more, but it was so good. The fan chat in Singapore was the best. I loved it so much. Going back to our seats, we continued crying and panicking and fangirling over the fact that we had just fucking seen them and talked to them. It was so surreal to all of us, and it was so funny as well. We waited a little longer, and then they had started the group photos. So as you go up to do the group photo, they hold their hands out and you get to high-five them, and for whatever reason, my dumb brain thought it would be absolutely hilarious if I would hold out my hand for a high-five and then change it to a fist bump at the last second. And when I did this, it was really quick, and I do not remember anyone else's reaction, but Junji was first in the line, and so I hold my hand up to him, I do this, and he just like stops. He just looked at me like, huh? It was the cutest thing expression, but it was so funny. I felt so bad because he was like, huh? What? And then I don't think I got anyone else with it because they had seen or they just didn't notice, but oh my god, poor Junji, it was so funny. Finishing up the engagements, we were told to wait outside again while they got the theatre organised and got us sorted. Now, while nothing wrong or bad ever happened in Singapore, we did have one small hiccup where a staff member had misspoken while lining us up and caused a bit of confusion. In Singapore, the theatre was assigned seating, and your seat number was connected to your tier, meaning they should be lining us up via general admission tier. However, as they were lining us up, they were doing it by both tier and benefit, which is fine, it's just a bit more complicated. However, as they were doing that, a staff member had shouted something along the lines of, "Please line up in accordance with your VIP number in your tier group. The venue is free seating," which confused everyone quite a bit as, one, that's not fair and nor is that what we were told, and two, quite a few people had come with friends who all had general admission seating together, but not all the friends had benefits, meaning that after this announcement, they likely wouldn't be able to sit together. Everyone was a bit panicked and confused and frustrated, and we were all trying to tell the staff that this isn't what we were told and to clarify with them what would happen. Luckily though, after a brief conversation with that staff member, we found out that they had just misspoken and everything would be as we thought it would. Very well handled by both the staff and fans, and I'm really glad that nothing bad ever happened in Singapore. After a while, once everyone was seated, the show began. And let me tell you, it was f***ing amazing. As soon as Dopamine played, I just broke down in tears because I was so happy and grateful that I was here. That after years of saving and months of not knowing, I was finally here, and I was happier than ever. Not a lot happened to me personally at the show, and I don't want to yap my whole experience away, so I'll throw up some videos and let them speak for themselves.
Come on, Georgie! I love you!
I do not believe that just happened. I absolutely sobbed my eyes out at the start when I played dopamine, and when rhea did begin, I cried like a little whiny baby, and I almost sobbed when I was doing the fan chat because they were so pretty and they all held my hand and I want to cry, and at the snapshot Mill did a heart with me and I want to cry and I'm so happy, and that didn't happen, and oh my god, I'm so happy. We woke up early once again, got our things ready and headed out. It was while we were walking around the Jewel that I realised how special Singapore was to me. Because of the fans I had met at Extraordinary and especially OnlyOneOf, my life felt like it had way more purpose. I was so grateful for the experiences that I'd had, and Singapore, as mentioned before, had become a really special place to me, and I think the post-concert depression was hitting at that point. So after some days of rest and more crochet, we were setting off for Melbourne. While at home, I had written some letters, collected some Aussie snacks, and I had crocheted them little lion keychains as a gift. Prior to this, I had been a casual but enthusiastic P1 fan. I wouldn't quite call myself a piece, but I've been following them since their debut, listening to all their songs and watching memes here and there. But boy did this convert me into full piecehood. They were f***ing incredible. Their energy was insane. I had no idea they'd be having solos, but I was absolutely blown away. Kyo had a fucking katana, Chongsop was slaying and serving as he always does, and fucking Intug, bro, oh my god. It was truly the best last minute decision I had ever made. Awakening early, we had a lot to do that day, because I had the bright idea that I would create a mural, having absolutely no knowledge on how to do that. Because in Melbourne, we have this place called Hosier Lane, which is where graffiti and street art is legal. And oftentimes, when artists tour that city, especially K-pop artists, fans will get together and create a mural in honor of them. This has happened this year for P1 Harmony, it happened last year for Stray Kids, it's happened for other artists, but I haven't been there to see them. And so I had the bright idea that I would make one. Because at that point, I had heard no talk of anyone getting together to make one for OnlyOneOf, and I didn't want them to feel left out. I wanted to honour them and give them a special welcome just like every other K-pop group got. And if that meant that I had to do it on my own with absolutely no knowledge and spend $18 on spray paints, then I would. The night prior, I had drawn up a rough sketch of what I wanted, which would be a black background with a pink line in the middle and maybe some hearts and words around the side. We got to Hosier Lane, I set up, I had mum supervising me, and after about an hour or so of painting, with multiple people stopping to watch me for whatever reason, I had finished my masterpiece. And she looked awful, she looked really bad, she sucked. Looking back now, and even after I was done, I could tell it was pretty friggin' awful. But I had no experience in the medium, I didn't have the opportunity to take my time or to come back at a later date because we couldn't take the cans with us, nor could we leave them in the lane, and I was fighting the weather which threatened to rain any second. And despite all of that, I was still proud. Yes, it is definitely the most ugly and hideous mural on that entire lane, and definitely the worst mural that's ever been created for any K-pop group ever, but it was a mural nonetheless. A mural that could celebrate, albeit pathetically, the arrival of our favourite artist. Sadly, not everyone had the best OnlyOneOf related experience that day. My friend who was also coming to Melbourne went to the Sydney show that was that day, and they recounted how it was an absolute mess. They recounted how after engagements, Fans were told to wait outside as the artist wanted to rehearse some more, and that they would be left to line themselves up. It was at this point a few fans had realised that the staff probably weren't going to honour the queue system, and quite a few VIPs were getting stuck being pushed to the back. They also then recounted how quite a few fans attempted to explain and show the rule to the staff that fans are to be lined up by staff according to their benefit queue number to avoid issues and crushes, some of them going as far as to pull up PAV's website to directly show them the rule, but were eventually ignored. Through the attempts to explain, a lot of fans had gathered at the door to get the situation known to higher up staff, which is when the immediate staff let in and let the VIPs in first, causing quite a few people to walk in so as to not lose their place and accidentally pushing and dragging other fans along in with them. At this point, my friend mentioned how scared they were of a crowd surge, because there were heaps of people pushing in a small space, knowingly or not, and just as many being frantic, meaning the situation could have gotten a lot worse quite quickly. However, from what we all heard and saw though, no one was injured and everyone was okay. This does just go to show though how one small act of ignorance or miscommunication can spark a lot of chaos and panic, and potentially harbour the abilities of injury. So yeah, Sydney was a bit all over the place and borderline dangerous, but at least we found out that Australia would have a nice and most importantly competent person running the show. According to some fans, the news of what had happened made its way along to a higher-up PAV employee that happened to be there, and the employee began to make it clear that he was incredibly apologetic and would make sure that nothing like that happened in Melbourne, also making sure to talk to all of the staff individually about the day, something that was handled very well and with a lot of care. Despite all that had happened though, my friend recounted that they still had lots of fun and spoke of the insane energy throughout the concert and how much fun the boys were having with the Aussie 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 chant. An overall success. That day had us adventuring to the Cup Sleeve. We made sure to have our schedule free so we could have a nice chill day doing whatever we wanted. However, there was no chill. Because upon arriving at the shopping centre that the Cup Sleeve would be taking place at, we got lost for 45 minutes. But we found the place nonetheless and were greeted to the absolutely beautiful, demure, cutesy and mindful sight of Jungwook Jin. What a handsome devil. We grabbed our drinks, we grabbed our goodies, we talked to the organisers for a bit and complimented each other's outfits while recounting how absolutely excited we would be for the next day, and we sat down and chilled out for a bit. The day had finally come. My dream was coming true, my true dream. The dream of seeing OnlyOneOf perform in my home city, and even more now because I was going to see it with a friend and the best tickets imaginable. I got there super early, I was super prepared, and I immediately snagged my tickets and started chatting with a bunch of fans. And while I was there chatting with some, heaps of people ended up complimenting my cardigan, and I'm not gonna lie, I was low-key gonna cry because I was so happy that so many fans not only recognized what the cardigan was and what it represented, but that they all still liked it despite all the flaws that I saw in it. While I was there too, there were heaps of actual big pride flags being passed around with texters for fans to sign, so I signed a few of those as well, and then I walked around snagging some absolutely adorable freebies. After all of that, I chilled out with mum for a bit until my friend arrived, and that's when I had the first IRL interaction I'd be having with the person I owed all of this and more to, and I was so happy. Unfortunately though, my friend arrived to bad news. Upon claiming their tickets and snapshots, the staff had told them that one out of their multiple snapshots had already been claimed at a time before they were even at the venue. We were both standing there so confused because why was it only one and none of the others? Why had it been claimed in the first place? How did it get claimed in the first place? What the f*** were we meant to do to get it back? Luckily, the lovely higher-up Pav dude was back, and throughout the hours leading up to the engagements, he was constantly checking back with my friend to see if he could get it to work. And just before we went in for engagements, something weird happened. Another lion had the same issue, and the time at which it said their snapshot was claimed was the exact same as my friend's. From there, the higher-up knew that this was all a mistake and he went and retrieved their snapshots. All was good, but the situation was still undeniably weird. So now I get to talk about the actual Melbourne tour. So this is completely unscripted, but first up was the engagements. Every time I went up to them, they were pretty much just holding my hand, shaking my hand again, saying thank you for coming. But I think for this one I was more focused on giving them their gift and being able to explain it to them and getting them to answer the question on the sticky note I had written, that I didn't really get as much face-to-face interaction with them. But I gave them all the gifts and they were all excited, especially KB. He was like, oh, what is this? Is this for me? What is it? And I was like, it's a lion, it's a keychain. And he was like, oh, that's so cute. And then I gave them a little parcel that had the fan letter with the instructions and the snacks in it. And he goes, what's in this? And I'm like, snacks, food, snacks. And he's like, oh, snacks, thank you. He was so fucking excited about the snacks. It was so cute. And when I got up to 9, I was practicing in line, trying to tell him that, hey, I drew you guys a mural in Hosier Lane and to go see it. But he understood what I was saying, but when I was trying to say Hosier Lane, I don't think it was clicking with him. I don't think he knew what that was. So I don't actually know if he ever understood what I was saying or if he ever went and saw it. But he was still like, oh, a picture, cool. And it was cute. It was just, the whole interaction was so cute. After the engagements, we all went and sat back down, and while I was sitting back down waiting for the group photos, we were talking with our lion buddies, and there was a lion and they had green hair. Like, think of Yosang for Finn Will era kind of green hair, and all of the merch was like on sale. And so they were like to all of us, hey, I'm gonna go get some things. Do any of you want like a small member keychain? And I was like, oh, only if you want. And so they go off and then they come back and they're like, here, I got you a mill member keychain. So I have that now, and it was so cute. And I did not catch this person's name, I did not catch their Instagram, but to the green-haired lion who was the gay cardigan lion buddy, thank you so much. I love you with my whole heart. Afterwards too, that was when the group photo was. And so we were the first group. I go up and I'm right on the edge, and so I'm like, oh cool, I'll just be on the edge, I'll stand next to my friend. No. The staff member was like, hey, can you go sit down and kneel next to Rhea? And I was like, huh? My brain went to static, and so I sat down, I knelt down, and I was like, hold on, I'm way too close, I was short-circuiting. And then he holds his hand out for a heart, and so I connected, but I was too scared to like actually touch him because, you know, and so I was holding it like this, and I'm pretty sure in the group photo it looks so stupid, but I'll get back to that. And so I was absolutely losing my mind. We go back to where we were, and I'm going to my friend, I'm like, oh my god, I just did a hand hug with Rhea, oh my god, I was sitting next to him, what the is happening? And they're just saying to me like, you really get along with Rhea, like he's called you baby, he's doing hand hearts with you, you're practically married, obviously as a joke, but I couldn't believe it. We lined up right at the front, you know, VVIP plus tier 1 right at the front. My number? Q10, so we were right there, and they're like, okay, go through, and I was like, oh, we're gonna line up, you know, like, here's the barricade, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, it was just a free-for-all, so the kids at the front immediately went to the middle, and my friend's just like, okay, I don't know where you're going, but we're going on this side, so they just grab my hand, yank me, and we're on this side, and that's when I was losing my mind, because I was like, holy shit, we are at the barricade, this is the direct front, I'm never getting closer at any other concert than what I am now. It was amazing. And then they started playing the music. Man, the music was so loud. The speakers, they were working. My ears hurt. And then it f***ing happened. They walked out, they start doing dopamine, I lose my mind. I don't know how I didn't cry immediately this time, but I was like, oh my god, I had the light stick, I had everything they were doing, I could see them right in front of me. As soon as they start doing their first mint, they immediately go straight into the Aussie things, and I'm pretty sure it's still on my Twitter. I compiled how many times they said Aussie, and it was like 36 times. I think it could have been higher, could have been lower, I can't remember the exact number, but they, like, that was just the start of that. And then KB goes, okay, I'm Captain Cook.
I'm one of yours, Captain Cook.
And everyone starts laughing and cheering, and I'm sitting, I like turn to my friend and I'm like, I don't know how much you know about Captain Cook. He wasn't a good guy. I don't know who told KB who Captain Cook was, and I don't know who told him that Captain Cook was cool, but he was going around saying that, and they were introducing themselves, and they started going like, oh, Junji, for like the Aussie chant, and it was so... It was just so funny. Their energy is absolutely amazing, and definitely between Singapore and Melbourne, the Singapore engagements, like the fan chat and stuff, that was the best, but the Melbourne concert was already the best. And so they were doing that, they did more songs. I think we got up to Loop, and that's when I like broke down for the first time. It is so hard to remember all these things, but I cried so many times. I cried during Loop. And then when I was in Singapore, they've been switching out Sage and Savannah the whole tour. When I was in Singapore, we got Savannah, and so I was really holding out for Sage, because Sage is my favourite song. And when I heard Sage, I lost my mind. It was so hilarious. I had a crisis. I swear you needed a camera pointing in my face, because the reaction I would have had, absolutely priceless. It was so funny. When they got to the encore and they did Melting Snowman, I cried. I don't like Melting Snowman. I'm a bit of a Scrooge. I'm not the hugest Christmas fan. So when they come out and they're like, oh my god, snowflakes on Christmas, I was sitting there like, oh, you're kidding me. But they were having so much fun and they looked so cute. I did not care. Being a Scrooge, this was the best moment of my life. They were adorable. And so after that, they start doing all their other encores. Blossom is first. And that's when everyone is like, okay, time to throw the pride flags up. So people throw the pride flags up. I was skeptical from what happened in Atlanta, and also remember what the staff were telling us, which was don't throw things on stage. And so I didn't want to. So I held mine out like, hey, I want you to take this, you know, like signaling, take this, I don't want to throw it at you. But no one took it, and I was like, I want them to hold it. So everyone else is throwing theirs up. I finally threw mine up away from any of the members, and as they're doing it, Yu Jung walks over to my side, he sees it, he picks it up, and he looks at it like, like, what is it? Because this is fabric, this is crocheted, and it's definitely not as big as the others, so he was probably kind of like, huh, this is new. But he looks at it, he like sees what he can do with it, and then he puts it in his pocket and he started like dancing around with it, and I broke down in tears, because I remember last year when they were at the Grand America tour, the joy of seeing all the fans throw their pride flags up and the members just dancing around and playing with them and being so happy. I remember for ages I had this one gif of Mill with a pansexual flag as my profile picture on so many things, because it brought so much joy to my heart. And that's why I was so sad last year when I was like, I physically don't have the money all the time to go to America to do it, because that was one of the reasons why I so badly had to go to one of their concerts. And so when I went to Singapore, I was a bit sad, because I was like, I'm not going to get to experience this, because things around LGBT stuff in Singapore it's not strict, but it's not as comfy as it is here. So I was like, I'm gonna miss that experience, especially if I wasn't gonna be here for Melbourne. I was gonna cry. But I was here, and people were throwing pride flags. I had mine, I threw it up, and Yu Jung was playing with it, so happy, and I just sobbed. I cried. It wasn't even like, oh, happy tears, you know, I'm still cheering and watching him. I had to fully turn away and cry into my arm, and my friend was right next to me on that side, and they just patted me on the back like, we know you're happy, it's okay. And then my other line buddy on this side was pointing like, look, he got it, and it was just so, I was so happy. I'm like actually gonna cry again. But the funniest thing was that after that, I'm like looking away into my arm, right? I look like I'm in pain. And so Rhea comes along and he crouches down and he looks at me and he's like, are you okay? And so I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just super happy. And he like laughs and he's like, okay, good. And it was just that like 50-second segment of my life will forever be my favorite. And I would never trade it for the world. I am so happy. But that whole concert was just absolutely amazing. And then we got the special encore of Time Leap, which is one of my favourite songs from them ever. And I cried again. I think I cried like 3 or 4 times that whole night or just during the concert. It was way too many, but I was so happy. And then afterwards, it's like, you know, everyone's like, okay, concert's finished, everyone's happy. They had the confetti go, and so as everyone's trying to leave, I'm just like scrambling to get my little box of confetti. And so they're like, everyone, we're gonna do the snapshots and this is how it's gonna go. So people were starting to get organized into that. Oh, that's right. When I had my snapshot, I had a standard. I paid for standard. But they were going premium then standard. I lined up, I think I was the first standard, and I think they thought they were still doing premium. So I get the photo taken with Mill, I get it back, and I'm like, why is this bigger? And then I go tell my friend, and they're like, yeah, that's a premium. Did you pay for premium? And I was like, no, I had standard. But I was like, it's okay, I don't want to be a bother, it's fine. But then I was like, no, it's too big, and I like the Polaroid size. So I went up to one of the nice ladies there. She was so nice. I don't remember her name at all. And she was like, okay, let me get this straight. You pay for standard, you got premium. You want standard, correct? And I was like, yes, please. I'm sorry. And she's like, don't be sorry. It's our cup, okay? So I'm gonna go, you have to give this back to us. I'm gonna go tell our higher up guy what's going on, and we're gonna escort you to the front so you can get your standard taken again. And so I go do that, she escorts me, I was panicking, but she was so nice, and I go back up and I'm like, hi Mill, I'm here again, I'm sorry. And they take the photo again, and the lady taking them accidentally retook it with a premium. And then the next day I was like, it's meant to be standard, it's okay. And so I pretty much took 3 photos of Mill but got 1 back, but that was fine. I got more Mill interacting time and I got my cute little snapshot and I'm super happy. But like seriously, the staff there was so nice. I go wait outside. By then Mum knew that the show had finished, so she was there. I met her outside and I was like, Mum, this was amazing. And then my friend finally finishes up, they come outside and I was like, oh, I'm missing my pride flag. So they were like the bouncer guys at the door and I'm like, guys, I forgot my pride flag, can I go back inside? And so they're like, yeah, sure, just be quick. And so they like walked me down the stairs to the other set of guys, explained to the other guys what was going on. The guys then went to the higher up dude, and the higher up dude was like, oh, a pride flag? Like the ones on the stage? So then he walks me over, he's like, is it this one, the small one? Because I was like, yeah, it's a small crochet one, it's got green on it. And so he's like, is it this one? And I was like, yeah, thank you. And so I got the back, I scrambled out, and then I went and I met up with my mum and my friend, and we were just chatting. And then afterwards we went out for hot pot and had a great time. But like, I think I've been talking for a full 15 minutes now. That concert was truly the best thing that has ever happened to me. Everything that happened, all the emotions I felt, how it went, how the boys were, how the fans were, people shouting and cheering, it was absolutely amazing. And cannot remember their name, but this one fan, they were in a white suit. I remember seeing that day earlier too. They had a bisexual pride flag and I think a transgender one too, but they had taken a photo of my mural. Cannot remember their name for the life of me. They were absolutely amazing. Their energy while we were lining up, they were so funny. I absolutely love them, like an iconic line. I'm so happy they're in our fan base. But just, I'm so happy. It was so amazing and I really don't want to cry again and I really have to shut up and stop yapping. But yeah, it was truly one of the best things that's happened to me, and I cannot thank the staff at that stop, the fans, OnlyOneOf, I cannot thank them enough for making that experience what it was to me. This crazy 3-year dream I've had, everyone made it come true better than I ever thought it could be. So after what was the best day of my life, I surely thought that nothing could top it. Especially not so soon, but boy was I wrong. After properly waking up after being in and out of sleep the whole day and having grouchy post-concert depression, I was greeted to the best news imaginable. Mill saw my mural. And once again, I can't script this because I feel way too many emotions, but I was ecstatic. Not only did one of them see the mural, the mural I had made for them, it was my bias. And I was so happy. I had people on Twitter tagging me, saying like, oh my god, Ray, Mill took a photo with it. They know, they saw. I had people on the Only One of Discord who knew what I did see his messages through Bubble and go, oh my god, bro, you're famous. They saw it, he saw it. And they all knew that I was Mill biased too, so they were like, oh, and Mill too, this is the best day for you. And I was just losing my mind. I was like, I'm trying to tell people like, oh my god, thank you so much, thank you, I'm so happy, no way Mill saw it, I'm so happy and stuff. And my friend who had Bubble, my friend who was with me last night had Bubble, they a few days earlier had offered to also send the photo to them just so that they could extra see it, even though that they were Twitter lurkers. And then on top of that I had told Nine, but it was just crazy to me that they still went and saw it. And in the Bubble message it reads that Mill went to Hosier Lane because it was the MV filming location of a song that he liked, and he came across it and was really surprised. So I don't think Nine understood what I was saying, which kind of saddens me because it makes me think that the whole group could have seen it and enjoyed it, but I don't care. Mill saw it, Mill said he was surprised and he enjoyed it, and I'm sure that the rest saw it through his experience, and I am so happy and lucky and grateful and proud. And there's so much I can say and so much I feel, but it was the second best day of my life by far. Not much happened on the way home. Our flight was at 5 AM, so we were just tired and opted to nap. After that, it was just back to normal. Chatting with friends, Discord, and Twitter Lion about how amazing and how f***ed the entire tour was, and how we're all so proud of the boys and how happy we were that we got to see them or experience the joy together. Not quite done yet though, as the last little thing as the cherry on top would be the APAC group photos. I'm not very good at smiling, so I look a little awkward, but the real kicker is the fact that in the Melbourne one, when Rhea was holding out his hand heart and I was trying to complete it but not fully touch him because I was too shy to do so, I completely missed him. I completely missed his hand heart, and it was like his hand is back here, I'm like over here doing it. It was so bad, it's so funny, I was absolutely laughing my ass off at it. Truly one of the photos ever taken.
Hey, editor me here. This is this side of my room and you're seeing me like this because I'm re-recording my final thoughts. So we're gonna get straight into that. First off, I want to say one big and massive final thank you. Thank you to friends, family, the Only One of Discord, everyone I met at each stop. Thank you all so much. Without you, I would not be cherishing this adventure and all these memories with as much love and gratitude as I am, and it is seriously all thanks to you that I was even able to do this in the first place. So one big, one massive, one final thank you to everyone. Next up, this video is not meant to bash Pav in any way. This video is simply meant to be a collection of accounts and events to act as some sort of honest review on what this tour was like, because it got pretty crazy at some point. So please do not go and bash Pav. Please do not go and find anyone you think I may have referenced in this video and instigate negative conversations with them. It is just rude and humane, and it is 3 months past the point to do that. So please don't do it. And my final thought is on Pav themselves, truly. I sincerely hope that they can do better, because some of the things they pulled off on this tour were absolutely amazing. The Melbourne and Singapore shows were absolutely incredible, and I have so many friends who were saying that some of the stops that they went to were just absolutely amazing experiences that they wanted to go back to. But I think I speak for all of us when I say that we would love these experiences without the mess that came with it, without the price gouging, without the miscommunication throughout the Australia shows on what the age would be, a very simple question, and without the mess that was the APAC leg, where so many shows were abruptly cancelled and moved, and Singapore was the only one left unchanged with no issues attached. And I understand that world tours are very hard to organise and they are not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes shows have to get cancelled, sometimes they have to be moved, and sometimes you hire a staff member or volunteer and they are not the best person in the world. But to the degree that it was happening this tour, it is hard to ignore, and it is hard to chalk it up to just bad luck. So Pav, I really want to see you improve. I want to see you look at the feedback that so many people are giving on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all over social media, this video, and improve. Because I would love more world tours for smaller, little known K-pop groups with the joy, amazement, and theatrics that happened on some of the best stops of the OnlyOneOf Tour without the mess that came with it. And so I will leave my final thoughts at that. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this video was definitely a pain to get through because I do not know how to present myself, I do not know how to record, and it was incredibly long, but thank you so much for sticking with me, sticking through it, and I hope that you'll continue to stick with me because I would love to continue this YouTube thing. I'd love to make a video on the Stray Kids show that I went to, and I'd love to make a video on Hatsune Miku when I go see her. So, without further ado, please consider liking and subscribing. Please consider sharing this video with a friend, a family member, a K-pop fan, a lying, someone you went and saw a K-pop show with, or someone you just want to laugh at me with, because yeah, this video was pretty ordinary in some ways, so thank you. Consider those things. I hope you have an amazing day or night. Sleep well, eat well, drink well, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!